stand up nice and tall. And that's where we're headed. And then allow your eyes to fall closed if that feels comfortable, if you can maintain your balance. And just start to notice your relationship between your foot and the floor. Noticing if you can feel all 5 toe pads resting on the mat. And then scanning down towards the metatarsal of the pad, the ball of the foot. If there's any sense of dominancy or loss of connection in any place across the foot. And then scanning to the arch. Do you feel a sense of airiness or a sense of collapse? Taking that attention to the outer edges of the foot, that boundary. Does it feel like a firm connection from the top of the foot down to the heel of the foot and then across the heel? Just noticing where the balance points tend to be on the foot. Just taking note of anything. And then we'll allow the eyes to come open. Just now gaze down at your feet and see where the space between the first and second toe, how that lines up with your inner heel. And if there's some degrees of extension there where we're just pointing outward, let's just reposition the feet so that basically that second toe is lined up with the inner heel. And then just allow the knees to relax, arms by your side. Tuning into the breath, starting to maybe shift our weight more intentionally into the heels as we lengthen through the crown of the head. See if we can find that plumb line. So trying to invite the center of the ear to stack over the center of the shoulder, the center of the hip, knee, and down to the ankle. And we're going to transfer the weight over to the left, pick up the right foot, and then curl the toes under on the right foot, starting with the big toe. So you're going to press some gentle pressure into the big toe. It might be quite sensitive. If it is, just note where those tender points are, and you're going to roll across the entire foot all the way to the outer edge to the pinky toe, and then back up. So we're starting to sway across the top of the foot, just opening up the joint spaces across the base of the toes. And then as we kind of get acquainted with our foot, let's just pause at any sort of tender point or a point that feels interesting. And then we're just going to start to rock back and forth gently. Just kind of like pedaling the heel up and down slightly, just rolling through that a little bit. Good, and then coming back to more of a neutral position. See if you can start to straighten your knee a little bit. Good. And then we're going to take that right arm up and over and side bend over to the left. So we're kind of hiking up our right hip a little. That's the way it has to be, because we're trying to elongate and expand that right leg just to open up the fronts of the top of the foot across the shin. Deep breath in, and then exhale, slowly come down and just release. So coming back to Tadasana, closing our eyes and noticing how the right foot compares with the left. Just noticing any sensory differences, noticing any balancing shifts or connections to the floor with that base of the foot as it connects into the floor. And then we'll start to shift into the right foot, coming into the other side. So curling the left toes under. We're going to start to roll through the toes. Just waking up the feet, expanding base so that maybe we can have some positive effects on our balancing poses later. As we roll through those toes, just let's take a pause at any tender points. For me, that's feeling right about there. It can be anywhere across that space, or just something interesting that's feeling like, oh, I want to explore that. And we'll start to do our pedaling with the heel, just rolling through, moving slowly, moving gently. And then, as you feel like that tenderness dissipates, then you can start to add a little bit more weight to it, but just being gentle with ourselves. Yeah, then we'll come back to more of a neutral position and start to straighten that leg. So we're just really pressing the knuckles into the floor. Take that left arm up and over. Maybe come into a little side bend here. As we lengthen through that front line of the leg and through the side body. Deep breath in, and then exhale. Coming back to neutral, let's just do a little check-in with that. Maybe we pick up our right foot and see how that feels. And then switch sides, pick up the left foot. Beautiful. Yeah, good. And then we'll come back down. So we're gonna stand at the top of the mat, finding a nice firm rooted base. I'm gonna work with my feet a little bit further apart than usual, but lining up that crease of the first and second toe with the inner heel, finding a gentle inner spiral of the legs. Inhale to breathe the arms up. We're going to take a gentle back bend. So maybe you want to press your hips forward slightly and ask your buttocks to draw down towards your back heels. And then exhale, we're going to hinge the hips coming forward, just finding that point where you feel it starts to feel there's tension on your rubber bands at the backs of the legs. And if that's so, bend your knees and allow yourself to find your natural lumbar curve. And then we'll just come into some gentle, not bounces, but like just sticking a toe in and taking it out. So firming up the legs here, really root into the floor, like you're growing roots, but then pulling moisture out of the earth, like a plant. Staying here. Activating the legs, getting the juices flowing. And then exhale, forward fold, just dripping your abdomen over the tops of the thighs, shaking out your head, yes and no. Shifting your weight over to the right, shifting it over to the left, shifting it over to the right. Now press into your right hip, bringing your upper body over to the left-hand corner of the mat. So as you press into your right foot, breathe into your right side body. And exhale, coming back to center. Let's do the other side. Shifting the weight into the left, pressing into the left hip, and then coming towards the right corner. Just moving intuitively here, just allowing yourself these little wiggles, little explorations, breathing into any tightness. And then we're going to walk the hands up the shins. Inhale, halfway to lift. Now, we can always maintain this nice bend in the knees to get the length and extension in the spine. Deep breath in. And then exhale, let's plant the hands at the top of the mat. Step the right leg back. And then the left leg back, coming into our plank. Inhale to lengthen through the crown, reach through the heels. Exhale to slowly bring your way, elevator your way down to the floor. And just releasing the toes. And inhale, we're going to slide the hands forward. And instead of Sphinx, we're going to just inchworm the fingertips a little bit further forward. So my elbows are just on the top edge of the mat. So they still have a cushion, but there's a little bit more extension. There's more, just a different angle here. This is not a 90-degree angle between the elbow joint and the shoulder joint. It's more like, what is that? 110. So ground through the palms. Inhale, start to activate through the pubic bone, dragging forward towards your jaw. And we're going to make this very active. So start to drag your palms towards the mat. Just activating all of the muscles of the shoulder girdle. Breathing. Holding us for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now release the pelvic bone to neutral and then soften any effort in the upper body. Just take a minute to pause and create a hammock for yourself. So I'm going to allow my shoulders to just sink, the scapula to leave the back of my body, just creating some space, like a hammock. And second set, inhale to ground through the palms. Start to drag the pubic bone forward, hugging the hands towards the mat. So we're lengthening, creating some space in our low back. Breathing here for 5, 4, 3, 2. Give it another hug. 1, and then soften, creating your hammock. Just nodding your head yes and no. Starting to really surrender the weight of your head. Last one. Inhale, pressing through the hands, hugging them back, pubic bone drawing forward. Holding this. Hydrating for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then slowly melt. Pubic bone comes back to neutral. And just placing your hands by your side, taking one ear down to the floor, just taking a moment to pause and just feel any sense of sensation, flushing, relief. Whatever remains after the effort in your arms and through your upper back. Switching sides, just bring your gaze to the other side. Just balancing the rotation in the neck. Slowly place our hands underneath the shoulders. Head into neutral. Inhale to press up through all fours. Exhale to reach back. Just lengthening the armpits. We'll inchworm those hands a little closer to the top of the mat. So the armpits feel longer. Now start to activate and press through the hands so you feel that the armpit space is hollowing. And ground through 5 pads, toe pads of the foot. Just stay connected here. Inhale, we'll lift. Exhale, let's take that left arm or right arm, threading it under the left armpit. Keep walking those left fingertips forward. Inhale to find that length through the left hand. Exhale. See if you can eventually inchworm the right hand underneath that left armpit to the point where you bring your eye gaze up towards the sky. Maybe one day our scapula will rest on the floor. And start to come into some pelvic tilts here. So inhale to tuck the tail under, exhale to release it back. Stay active through your hands, pressing both palms into the floor here. And then we'll slowly come back to neutral, to this really kind of alternate puppy pose here. So our hips are set a little further back than our classical puppy. And coming into the other side, inhale to find that length through the spine, through the crown. Exhale, let's scoop that left arm under the right armpit. So we'll walk the right fingertips back towards the top of the mat. Start to unpack this pose. Starting to lengthen. Just walk those left fingertips a little further, inviting that left scapula to scoop under. And then if you feel like you want more space, you can rotate the neck. Start to turn towards the ceiling and coming into our tilt. So tucking the tail under, breathe into your left side body. Exhale to release back and playing here. Just coming in and out. If you feel compelled to circle, to swivel, to figure eight, just follow those impulses. Very good. Pressing the hands into the floor, drawing your gaze, rotating at your pelvis, or not your pelvis. Pelvis is working towards neutral, and think of almost taking your navel up and in towards the back of the spine and hooking it under your right rib cage. Breathing into that space, try to relax any tension. And jaw, and then exhale, slowly unravel out of that. Coming to sit on your heels, hands resting on the tops of your thighs. Give them a little circle. Turning your head to the right and the left. Give yourself some nods, yes and no. Let's take the arms up into cactus pose. And then exhale, let's take the right arm underneath the left. Just twizzle those hands. And now you can either just think of making two arms as one, so they're pressing together. Then we're going to take those hands over towards the left, and then just incline your head to the right. And let's give it some nods, yes. Keep this gentle tension, just gentle pressure as we lift the elbows up. The right hand is pressing into the left palm. And now let's take the chin, keep your head in an incline and take your chin towards your right shoulder. And start to gaze downward. And you can start to coil your upper back down. And create these little upper back nods. Just rolling gently in and out there. Slowly unwrap and just place the hands on the tops of the thighs. Just notice how one side feels compared to the other. Slowly stack your bones. Again, ears floating up over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips. Same with your breath awareness. Just locating where the breath is in the body, inviting it to softly fill way down to the lower abdomen. Without force, just think of expansion. Breathing so that the belt line can relax and expand. Inhale to breathe the arms up. Exhale to take the left arm underneath the right. Start to press the hands together. Inhale, elbows lift. Exhale, start to press the left palm in towards the right and incline the head in opposition towards the left shoulder. And start to nod, yes. Keep this gentle relationship of traction between the palms. Just letting the left hand win so it comes over towards the right side of your mat. Now we'll take take the chin towards the left shoulder and start to coil the upper body down. So you're just gazing towards your left hip crease here. And then just rolling up and down. Just picking up our upper thoracic here and draw our spinal muscle groups across the right side. Lingering anywhere, it needs a little bit more love, a little more opening. Breathing into your right side body. Expanding that right lung across the back. Feel this fanning. And then exhale, just slowly coming back to neutral. And then relax and rest your hands on top of your thigh. Relax your hand. Just start to absorb any sensations, any residue that you experience. And then slowly start to roll from the base of the spine up through the vertebrae until you get to the top, perching the head on top of the shoulders, relaxing any tension in the jaw, soft smile, broad, expansive eyes. And then we're going to slowly shift forward to curl the toes under and lift into down dog. And we'll pedal. Let's start to pedal here. Hello, legs. Shaking out any tension in the neck. Inhale, we're going to take that right leg back and start to draw a line just to the point where you can no longer maintain a neutral pelvis. As soon as you want to feel like opening, just pause there. Put a little micro bend in the standing leg. Now press into your right palm and then start to open up that hip. And then you can bend the knee. We'll explore and create some circles in the hip. And once you do 2 or 3 in one direction, just switching directions. Staying really attentive. Going to make those symmetrical forms. And notice where it gets difficult. Coming back to neutral pelvis, exhale. Just step that right leg through. Coming into a lunge. Come to upright. That's it. Inch forward. Find your balance. Notice how that feels. You can always use a wall or a chair. I love using a wall just to create just a little bit of added support if it's near. And then let's place our hands on I call these my headlights, frontal hip bones. And we're going to start to come forward and shift back. Come forward and back. So as you place your hands on those headlights at the front of the hip, notice where you start to feel them point up and come back to pointing forward. So that up here, they're pointing straight ahead. And at a certain point, as we come into this extension, they start to tip forward. So just feeling that movement in your own body. If you like to use your hands or if you just use your proprioception to feel that, we're going to just find that point before they start to tilt up. So I'm going to back off a little bit. So that leaves me about here. So start to press the feet down, hug them together. Inhale to take the left and right arm up together. And start to pivot the palms towards the back wall and reach back and actively pressing into the legs, really pulling the left heel forward just to meet the right hip. And exhale, take that right hand to your right hip and come into a side bend towards the back right corner of your mat. Start to lengthen through the ring finger and wiggle that ring finger up and down. And we're going to bend at the elbow, grab for the back of the head and start to create some little circles here. Really working to stabilize our balance using that broader foot that we cultivated at the beginning. And just trusting we have a little bit more of a base here. Once you finish a few rotations in one direction, switching, start to involve your rib cage. And then we're going to fully express this. So going back to that back right corner of our mat, reaching the elbow up and over like we're drawing this arc. And just spraying our water over towards that corner. And then exhale, shifting, planting the hands, stepping ourselves back to all fours. And then reach back into down dog and let's pedal. Now we're going to shift away to the right leg, really stay connected to the muscle tone of that leg, and then inhales, draw that left leg up, finding our neutral point where just before we have to feel like we need to lift the hip to get more extension or more height, just find that place where you can maintain neutral pelvis. And then from there, ground through your left inner hand, press into that hand, lengthen your armpits, your shoulders away from the ears, then start to peel that hip upwards, so coming into external rotation. Look under your left armpit to help facilitate that. You can bend that knee, and we'll start to create our circles. Maybe if the small circles are easy, do bigger circles. And if the bigger circles are easy for you, do the small circles. So doing 2 or 3, being mindful of the knee of the standing leg. Inhale, breathe in, exhale, find neutral. So our headlights are pointing down, and then swing that leg forward. So almost like knee into nose if that's helpful. And then just get it as close to the front of the mat as possible, and then inchworm the rest of the way. We'll push into the floor to come up. And let's place our hands on the tops of those frontal hip bones again. And let's glide forward and back. It's harder to close your eyes here, but if you want to see what that's like, try to close your eyes. Feel with your hands at what point those frontal hip bones start to tilt. Just coming back to that point where they can stay pointing neutral. That's where we want to be. So that's about here for me right now. Today, I'm going to press into my feet, hug them together. Inhale to breathe the arms up. Pivoting the palms back once again. Lengthening through your ring finger. Press into the ball of that right foot as you pull it forward. And start to breathe length across the front line of the leg. Right leg. Exhale, take the left hand to your left hip, or hip crease. And we're going to take that arm to the back left corner of the mat. I'm really rotating the palm back and reaching through my ring finger. I'm going to start to wiggle the finger here. And there's so many ways to challenge the balance here. We can look towards that finger on the side if that feels like something you need. Just still your gaze, wherever it is. We're going to bend the elbow and start to draw some circles. Breathing into the rib cage here. Switching directions after 2 or 3 rotations. You can involve the ribs if you're seeking more movement in your breath. Full expression, reaching that elbow up and over towards the back corner. 3, 2, press into the feet, hug them in. 1, and then softly, with intention, placing our hands at the top of the mat. And coming back to all fours here. And just create some circles. Coming into cat and cow, but kind of like a barrel roll. Do a few in one direction and then switch to the other. If something feels really nice, flex your spine. After all those lunges we did, just allow yourself time to linger in those counter poses that feel yummy. Okay, now we're going to slowly bring our heels down to the floor here. Take the right knee to the top of the mat, the left knee back. So we'll just come into a 90-90. So we'll have a 90-degree angle on the front leg, coming out from the right hip, and the same on the left. And let's just create some circular movements here and see at what point do we get stuck. Just stay where you feel a little bit stuck, like you can't finish the perfect circle that you're trying to draw, and just go back and forth in that one place, breathing into it. softening something. Pressing the legs down into the floor, staying pretty active here, but also trying to be supple to create space for the breath to help open things up in those places that feel a little bit congested. And then we're going to start to find our way to the circle where we're leaning back a little bit. So keep circling your way to your butt, pointing your chest, centering it with the left corner of your mat, and then walking your hands back just to the point where you feel like you're getting something. Okay, so we're starting to feel some sensation in that left leg. Now ground. So we're taking that left femur into internal rotation, pressing it into the floor. The right leg is in external rotation, and we're also gluing that to the floor. So just, if you feel pain anywhere, just back off a little bit. Don't go as deep. Maybe don't press as hard. So just listen and start to then grow your neck. The ears grow away from the shoulders. Lift your heart up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to slowly walk ourselves out of this. Let's shift forward. Now we're pressing into that right leg. Let's lift the left leg up. And we're going to create a few circles here. So I'm circling, I'm thinking of drawing little circles with my left knee and then coming the other direction. Now extend it back, keep it lifted. And then we'll circle it around and 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 place it on the opposite side of the front hip. In this case, it's my right. Coming into a twist. You can take this right heel back towards your left buttock. Find something that feels that you can wiggle your hips and make contact. So just give yourself a wiggle. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you have a very strong lopsided kind of position here, then prop yourself up on the side that's touching the floor. If you ever had like a little blanket or a sweater or something, or a towel to fold up, you could try that and see if it felt more balanced and supported. So from here, we're going to come into some twisting. Exhale, we're going to take that left or right arm on the outer left hip and just start to rotate here. Start to coil the belly, rounding the low back. Turn your gaze past your left shoulder or wherever point you feel like you want to work today. Start to press into your right big toe, pressing the right thigh towards the long edge of the mat on the right side. So grounding, grounding, all the points of contact that touch the floor, ground them down, and all the points that don't, lift and expand from your center for 3, 2, exhale, bury the navel under that left rib, those left floating ribs, and 1, slowly release, feeling any sensation along the way. Take that right shin out a little bit forward, and we'll either stack the legs into fire log or whatever version you want to practice. You can bring your legs in a little bit more if that's bugging your knee. You can also just come into a cross-legged position. So just finding something that allows you to get and access your own hips. Finger tipping the floor, inhale, get nice and long and tall. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Try to find some balance and centering on the sitting bones. See if you can sit on the front edges of the sitting bones. And then exhale, stay connected to that as you tip forward. Try to maintain contact with those sitting bones, soften something as you go. Once you hit your edge and you can't go any further, just completely go passive and round your spine. And now take our hands out towards the left corner of the mat and allow those hands to help reground your right side towards the floor. So the right sitting bone might have lifted. See if you can help it to ground down a little bit and breathe into your right side. Gently pressing the feet, pressing the legs towards the floor. See the difference between pressing the underside leg down and then the top leg down, and then now do the opposite, press them in towards each other. So the top shin is pressing into the bottom shin is pressing into the top shin. And just explore like a toggle switch, the difference between those two. And exhale slowly, find a way back to neutral. Whew. And unraveling back into our 90-90. And we're gonna just windshield wiper the legs to the other side. That felt so nice. Let's just do it again. And then coming back. There we go. So we're grounding into those legs, and we're gonna start to explore our circle. Creating little circular movements and finding that place where you have difficulty with mobility, like accessing certain parts of the circle, really feeling that here. And let's just toggle it back and forth in that one part of the circle. Let's draw in that line in our mind's eye, this part of the circle. I love this visualization of reforming the bone of the hip socket. Instead of the femur head having to reposition itself, let's carve out symmetry in the hip socket itself. Breathe it there. And then we'll make our way to that pocket where the chest will then point to, I guess in this case, right corner of the mat, or the opposite corner of the mat to the front knee. That applies. And let's just start to settle back onto our hands, tripoding them out as much as we need to get that angle we're looking for. Some of us might want to go right to the floor, but just ask if that feels safe and if that feels informative. And maybe back off just slightly from where you start to feel some real sensation. Be kind. And we're just lingering here. Start to really press. Again, that right femur is coming into like a medial inward rotation. And we're feeling the external rotation on the left side. So we're gently working in the legs, nothing crazy. Just to say, I'm awake, I am active, I'm an active participant in this. We're sending some beautiful interstitial fluids to these more extremities of the body, giving them a nice drink, allowing them to stay vital and supple and resilient, feeling that happening, softening something in your jaw and shoulders. Slowly come back up. And now we're going to shift forward, coming into this active front leg and lifting the back. Maybe we lift the entire leg. Maybe today I can just lift my heel or I can just lift my knee. Use the floor for that support if you need help finding and triggering those new neural pathways. So just working with what is needed and letting the heat come and start to create some circles here. Notice if one side feels dramatically different than the other. That's certainly the case for me. I'm feeling this sense of, I like to call it movement amnesia, where I have just better control on the other side than this side. So this is where I really need to work. So just noticing what side felt different for you today and stay with those circles. Again, playing with the size of those circles, working towards symmetry, extend to that back leg, reaching. And then we're going to draw a line nice and slow, hovering it, press the body into the floor and raise if you can do this without hands, even better. See if we can set that leg in place into our twist. Whew. Now we'll scoot that front heel in towards the right outer buttock. And I like to do a little jiggle, just centering those hips, finding contact with the sitting bones. Inhale to grow tall, exhale, let's scoop that left upper arm to the outer right thigh and come into a twist here. So staying active in the legs, top shin pressing down, grounding through the big toe of the right foot. Now starting to bring your gaze towards the back corner mat, edge of the mat. I'm just gazing past my right shoulder here. Exhale to start to descend the navel, feeling a soft flexion in your low back. So curving the low back and hooking the navel underneath your right ribs. Offering any gentle movements if that's what the body's asking for. We'll circles or figure eights, or breathing into those pockets. And then we'll slowly unravel, setting up our legs. Long pose or cross-legged or whatever form of this you want to work in. Stacking the shins. Just always listen to the knee. If we're feeling pain or strain in the knee, that's never good. So we need to change it. But if it's feeling good, let's fingertip the floor on either side. Get that nice long plumb line. Maybe rock the pelvis back and forth so that you can feel what the back position feels like as you lift the sitting bones off the floor behind you in a way. So you're starting to balance on the front edges of them. Then we can start to tip forward. Finding the edge of resistance where it gets a little bit hard to push through. And then that's the point where we surrender and use gravity to help us. But we're staying active in the legs, very passive in the upper body. So start to press the shins in towards the floor, and then press them in towards each other, and just play with those sensations. Any pockets of tightness as you toggle between these two. This induced resistance that you're giving. Completely surrender. We're going to start to walk the hands over towards the right knee. And as we press and ground into those fingertips, you might give a little bit of extra weight into your right hand, right fingertip, to then ground that left hip down. Breathing into your left side. Inchworm the left fingertips away from you to get that length in your left side. And send lots of breath to that space to get more expansion of the tissues here. So when we come out of the pose, maybe we'll breathe a little easier, a little more fully, a little more efficiently. Feel called to roll out of this in any way your body is asking for. Slowly come back, pulling the spine up and over itself until the head stacks over the shoulders. Oh, take that left or the right leg over, send it back, and then open up. Extend the legs out. Flip yourself around so you can face the long edge of your mat here. If you've oriented yourself in a place where you can't see, and then just place your fingertips behind you. Get nice and tall in the spine. Give yourself a wiggle. Release any tension or feelings of imbalance. And then exhale. Start to ground the floor so that the base of the femur reaching towards the floor. And then the heels gently pressing downward and outward. And coming into an active forward bend here. A wide-legged forward bend. And then we're going to just move from side to side. I like to call that my like kelp forest. This like sensation of just watching the seaweed or just sway in the water. Very silent. And then slowly just sway your way back up. Keep active in the legs. Pause at about 50% from neutral to the full range of your forward fold. So we're just hanging out in the middle now. Notice the shift of sensation. Notice what this does to your nervous system when you don't go as far. So what do you gain? What do you lose? And then coming back up to seated. You're going to slide the legs over to one side. And just come lie down on your back. Give yourself a chance to pull your knees in. Just compressing your inner groins. Just a little hug. And just taking a moment to find your shavasana. And that was a great time to do maybe an extended shavasana. Maybe you do 20 minutes. Maybe a meditation. Or maybe today is more of an express practice. And you just take a few minutes with me now. Just stay where you are if you have time. But if you're ready to move, you just take time to wiggle your fingers and toes. Notice how your body's feeling from one side to the other, compared to how you felt when you did your initial body scan at the beginning. Using your exhale, just turn yourself onto one side. Thank you for practicing. I'll see you next time. Namaste. So if you want to stay in your Shavasana, please do.